Welcome back, everyone. In this video, our goals are to discuss the difference between spline control points and segments. We're going to demo how to go about selecting control points. We're going to demo how to assign meshes to control points, and then we're going to demonstrate how to delete unwanted control points. So, firstly, I should let you know I am within my splines map. Here is the pathway for that. Content, landscapes, maps. And of course, in order to edit our splines, do anything with our landscape splines here, we need to be in our landscape mode. I've got the manage tab selected, and then over in our list of tools, we've got the edit splines option selected. Okay, also I want to point out that I do have my splines layer here selected. That's where this spline currently exists, on our splines layer, which is reserved. If I right click on here, it is reserved exclusively for splines, and I can choose to remove reserve for splines, but I do want this layer just for my splines. Okay, so we're going to discuss again the difference between control points and segments because it is so important. I know I talked about it the last video, but these points here, these mountain icons, these are control points. These are the points that determine the various bends in your spline. These areas in between these control points are segments. So splines are made up of control points, these little mountain icons, and segments, the space between those mountain icons. Now, how can we select these different control points? Well, the easiest way is to simply click on these different control points to select one. That is simple enough. And we demonstrated that in the last video as well. How can we select all control points? Well, there are two ways to do that. One way is to select a given control point, like I have one selected here. And with one selected, if I do Control plus A, that's going to highlight and select all of them. That's a real handy way to make it so if you wanted to raise up your entire spline here, you could do that like so. I'm going to set this back down. There we go. Now let me just click off because that's just one way to do it. The second way to select all control points is simply to select either a control point or a segment. Right now I've got a segment selected. Now I've got a control point selected, and having either of those selected, over in the details panel, I've got this option to select all connected, boom, control points. So if I click this button, I now have every control point selected. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now let's get to the fun stuff. How do we slot in some meshes at each control point? Well, that is simple enough. I'm going to start off by selecting one single control point here. I'm going to tap the spacebar here to bring on my three-arrowed movement widget. So with that guy selected, down in the details panel, we've got this section labeled mesh right there. So this is where I can slot in a mesh of my choosing. And if I type in Scott Pine, these are some trees that are located in the kite demo pack. I'll go Scott Pines 1. I'll slot that in. After it takes a little while to figure out what this mesh is going to look like, we're going to see a tree sprout up right here at this control point. And now that mesh took an absurdly long amount of time to load in, so maybe you don't want to load that one in if you can avoid it, but there is our tree nonetheless. So you could actually slot in different meshes per control point. This one control point over here, you could select that. And right over here, maybe you want to put in your SM underscore bush. And boom, you do have a bush down there. It's a little bit hard to see, but if I tap the G key, you can see a tiny bush down there. And let me tap the G key again to toggle my spline back on. And you can see how you can place different things at control points all along your spline right here. Now I'm just going to undo this. And I am going to have my one control point selected here with the tree on it. Now, how can we select or set meshes to all control points? So simple enough. You can just select one control point. Up here in your details panel, we can then select all control points. And with all of them now highlighted and selected, we can scroll down and you can see our mesh now lists that we have multiple values. And the reason it shows multiple values is because we have a tree set for one and nothing set for the others. So if I was to now set this to my Scott pine tree, slot that in, now you can see I've got trees at every single spline control point. All right, so other things to know here with a given control point selected here or multiple control points selected like I've got. If we tap the R key, that'll just auto rotate our spline to make it have smooth transitions from control point to control point. So let me just hit Control Z to undo that. You can see how there's a little bit of a bend here. In fact, let me kind of accentuate this a little bit of a sharp turn right there. If I then Control A to select all, now I'm going to tap the R. R is in rotate key, or rotate. And I tap that R key, you can see how it automatically rotates my spline to try to smooth out some of those harsh edges. Now, how can we delete out a single control point? Well, that's simple enough. With nothing selected, all we got to do is select one of these. And if you hit the delete key, it'll then ask you, you've got two segments attached to this control point, a segment here and a segment here. Do you want to join those two? Simply select yes, and it'll join it together appropriately. And then lastly, how do we delete out an entire spline? A mistake I often see students make is they will select one of these control points, hit the delete key, and think that that's going to delete out the entire spline. That is not so. You need to select all control points. So again, with one of these selected, you can do Control plus A to select them all, or select one and then in the details panel, select all connected control points. And once all of them are highlighted and selected there, then you can hit the delete key and you will get the message saying control point has two segments attached. Do you want to join them? In this case, we're going to say no. And boom, your entire spline is gone. Now I'm going to hit Control plus Z because I don't want to have to recreate that spline. But guys, that is a quick primer about spline control points. That'll do it all for this video. We will see you in the next one.